Everybody, and welcome to the afternoon sessions. My name is Julia Still, the creator and host of VID21, and we are joined by the beautiful Celeste Halliday. I've known Celeste for a few years now, and you are in for a treat this lunchtime because Celeste has been working with leaders and their teams for over 25 years to achieve remarkable results by creating connected leaders, connected teams, and connected cultures. Celeste achieves breakthrough outcomes with the world's most progressive organizations by blending her background in psychotherapy, her fascination with emerging insights from around the world of neuroscience, and her practical board and executive experience in Australia and overseas. This blend has seen her become a global expert in her field, working as a keynote speaker, facilitator, trainer, and mentor. And today she's going to talk to us about how to build real human connection and become contagiously positive. Celeste, I can't think of a better conversation in shaping the future about how we get connected after a year of feeling somewhat disconnected. So I can't wait to see where you take this. I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, it is a pleasure for me to be with you today. And I just wanted to thank Julia for organising such an astounding event again. My intention for today is to give you some space and time to step out of the everyday, to connect in with yourself first. And if you're all up to it, maybe connect a little bit with me and each other. I also want to connect with you with some practical information. So some great content, but some practical tools and takeaways that you can implement straight after the session to get a real change in your performance and also your level of resilience. So to start with, the thing I always like to do is find out where you're at. So just in the chat, you don't have to get onto video, and I don't want to look like a dinosaur getting this too close to you like Godzilla coming at you. I would love to know 1 to 10, 1 being low, 10 being high. What's your energy and mood today? And there is no wrong answer, whatever is true for you. And 2, where are you physically in the world? 9 and in Melbourne. Thanks, Julia, you are on fire. 9, 8 in Shanghai. Welcome. 8 Melbourne for Suzanne. Thanks, Suze. Suzanne is my lovely business manager who makes the whole world work behind the scenes. So one of the things, energy is about an 8 and you're on the south coast of New South Wales, where there is a lot happening. So thank you for giving me a little bit of an idea about where you're at. I want to start at a high level with connection. Connection is the bedrock upon which extraordinary cultures are built. It's the foundation of all great leadership and, in fact, any relationship. It's the glue that holds our teams, our families, and our communities together. And it's the key to creating more human leaders and high performance results. I bet some of you might not know, Julia, tell me if you do, that connection is actually the #1 predictor of whether you will thrive both professionally and personally. Several decades of research have confirmed it's the greatest predictor of our long-term happiness and success. We're tribal creatures, after all, by nature, and we're neurologically wired to need each other. The more connected we are, the more we achieve. Together, we are so much greater than the sum of our parts. And I think more than anything, that's what we discovered last year. At an individual and organizational level, connection is what really powers our performance. When we become leaders who really know how to connect, then we build connected teams and connected cultures. So the thing about the world right now is we are, particularly in the Western world, the loneliest we have ever been. We feel more connected than ever with these, mainly through devices and through technology, but many of us are actually very lonely, and the loneliness statistics are frightening. And it's driving governments and communities to respond at a much more systemic level to address what we know is not just a health issue, but actually an issue to communities and individuals thriving. To keep our teams connected to the organisation and to the meaning and purpose of their roles, to themselves, their development and progress, and very importantly to each other as well, we as leaders need to be connected into those things and deeply to ourselves. And we can forget in the busyness of day-to-day life, in stress, and when crazy events like last year occur, that a big part of our role is actually to stay calm and connected here with ourselves first, a bit like putting the oxygen mask on before we can help other people, so that we can then extend that to others in our teams, our colleagues and peers. And part of that role is about staying curious to our own reactions and what might be driving them, and to help build bridges between individuals and the organisation, meaning and purpose, and to each other. In our workplaces, we're seeing people struggle with leading and working remotely. They're feeling uncertain, anxious, alone. And even with the return to a hybrid working environment, many of my clients are talking about a real level of flatness in people's mood. And whilst they're still being productive, they're feeling disconnected from the teams and from the purpose of what they're doing. So we want to start bridging that disconnection and leading people back. And one of the really great ways to do that, there's many ways that we talk about when we talk about connection, but one of the ways to do that is to focus on positivity. And I'm not talking about Pollyanna happiness, faking it and putting it on. I'm talking about genuine chemical positivity and training our brains. Wayne, I think you might know a bit about this. Are you not interested in the brain? Did I see that on your profile? Yeah. Training our brains to scan the world for positive, particularly in a work context. And there's lots of small, easy tools that we can implement that are scientifically shown to greatly impact the way that we view the world and how we move in it, which we'll share with you towards the end of this. So what I want to share with you today is a very simple model of 3 keys to becoming contagiously positive and connected. I won't go too close because I don't want to freak you out. The 3 things are to choose your lens, to remember that positivity is contagious, and then to train your brain. So it's an active process, like everything in leadership. It's a practice. We have to keep coming back to it. We're never the finished article. I am certainly not the finished article. It's an ongoing process of incremental small steps. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is to the lens through which, to choose the lens through which we see the world. When I found this information out, some of you might already know my spirit animal around positivity. My spirit guide is Sean Acor, and he's a brilliant author and speaker and researcher in the space of happiness and positivity and how that powers results in organisations and communities. We can share his book links and so forth with you if that's useful at the end of this. So Sean pulled together a whole lot of research and did some himself. And what it showed us is that when our brain is positive, it performs much, much better than when it's negative, neutral, or stressed. Our intelligence goes up, our resilience goes up, and our energy levels rise. And that fundamentally is why we want to focus on being positive. If we imagine ourselves as giant walking, talking chemistry sets, what we want to do is have the right chemistry in our brains to open up the learning centers so that we can both learn, develop, and grow and be in that slightly uncomfortable place of growth more frequently, but also so that we can cope with what is often the chaos of uncertainty and change. So the research shows us that every single business outcome improves when our brains are switched on and positive. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. And if you can find a way of becoming positive and helping your teams become positive too, our brains actually work harder, faster, and more intelligently. At a chemical level, dopamine floods our system and switches on the learning centers, which help us learn and also adapt to change. Questions, comments, thoughts? Let me know. Unmute, stick it in the chat. I'm easy.
Interesting stats. Yeah, really good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, when I found this stuff, it was a game changer for me. And I implemented it with teams and genuinely saw the difference. But I have to always put the caveat in, particularly with my geekiness around neuroscience and psychology, that you cannot walk around being, as a leader or anyone else, continuously happy. So as human beings, we need to experience the whole range of human emotions. And what I encourage leaders to do is be very connected with where they're at and to be able to share that, but also to be able to funnel how they're feeling. You know, part of the responsibility of the leader is to manage, but not necessarily hide where they're at, you know, to show their wiring so that people understand that negativity, stress, you know, frustration on your side is not actually a result of them. It's very much how you're dealing with the world at that point in time. So the thing about the frame that we see the world through is that only 25% of success in our jobs and our careers is actually predicted by IQ, or the old school version of what intelligence is measured as. 75% is actually predicted by our optimism levels, by the social support and connection that we have, and by our ability to see stress as a positive challenge and an optimistic approach to that, instead of as a threat, and then be able to work through and manage change and stress. It's not reality as we experience that shapes us, but actually the lens through which we see the world. 90% of how happy we are on any given day is not because of the events in our lives, but the way that our brains see those events. So if we see a change as full of opportunity, we stay positive and our brain chemistry is working the right way. So we can be much more effective and successful through that change than if we view it with fear and negativity and shut our brains down in effect. So this is true of everything in our lives. And Sean Acor's research that he did, I found fascinating because he talks about the fact that all companies and schools tend to teach us a formula for success, which looks like, if I work harder, then I'll be more successful. And when I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. So we're using being happy in the future as our motivation. I'll be happier when. So a little game I want to play with you just in the chat or unmute is, has anyone, and please don't leave me hanging because I'm a yes to all of these, ever had the thought, I'll be happier if I lose 5 kilos? I totally have. I'll be happier if I get X amount pay rise so that my life is financially easier. I'll be happier if I get that dream house on top of the ocean with the waves crashing at night. Sorry, that was probably a little bit too much information. I'll be happier, I'll be happier, I'll be happier. And that is what we've been taught is the way to live, to constantly have happiness out in front of us. But the issue with that, the thing about that is we never get there, because when we reach whatever the goal was that was supposed to make us incredibly happy, we just changed the goals. We just changed the yardstick. So instead of the house that I wanted, now I want X and Y instead. So we're in this perpetual state of putting our happiness somewhere out in front of us. What his research actually showed is the opposite is true, that when we raise our levels of positivity right now in the presence, our brain experiences what he calls a happiness advantage. So being more positive does actually make us more successful. And the thing about that that's super important to me is that's very much about individual performance. But if you remember point 2, which is it's catchy, mood is contagious in organizations. Energy is contagious. Behavior, leadership, culture, they're catchy. And in fact, the research says that within 5 minutes, without saying a single word to each other, we physiologically sync up to the people around us, which is kind of horrifying. Think about what you might have caught in the office on any given day. And also think about what you might have spread. But if you think about you on your best day, when you are lit up and aligned with what you're doing and the meaning of that work and the contribution that it makes, you know that you can lift up the people around you. We've all seen the impact of one person coming into a room who is very negative, very flat, very cynical, and how quickly that can spread and bring down the energy and mood of the team. And the reason for that is because we are pack animals. Our safety is based on belonging. And so we tune in to each other very carefully and without even realizing we're doing it. We sort of have this idea now that we have giant brains, walking around on 2 legs, and forget that we're actually primal bodies responding to each other all the time with just the slight raise of an eyebrow or a flinch. We read so much from each other's physiology. I remember when I ended up, it felt like, in London with almost 2,000 people in a business as their COO. And the biggest team I'd had before that was 30 people. And I was an Australian far from home in this big London office that just seemed to go on for eons. It was just cubicle land. And the lift doors would open in the morning. And I would stand in the lift, and sometimes I just got off the phone to my mum because of the time difference and I was feeling a bit teary or homesick or whatever. And I would notice these heads popping up right across all of these cubicles, one by one. They're all popping up. It looked like meerkats. I felt like I was on the savannah and I had to somehow get across the desert in order to get to my office and close the door and be in safety. And I couldn't understand why they were all meerkatting me and what that was about. Whack-a-mole. That's totally true, Wayne. That's what I should have thought about. I didn't though. I just felt like I was going to get attacked by the meerkats. And what I realized, and it was a very, fundamental part of my leadership awakening, to use a quite out there term, is that I was the weather. I was uncomfortable with the idea of power, and I realized that I had power because of my position and I was not wielding it consciously. So they were looking to me every day to check out, what's the weather going to be like today? Because she's the weather. Is it going to be stormy? Is she going to be withdrawn? Am I doing what I call Jekyll and hiding? One day I'm fantastic and spreading positive energy, and the next day I'm looking down and not engaging with anyone, which is very inconsistent, and creates a culture of fear. So I wished, Wayne, that I had thought of whack-a-mole back then. It might have given me some small measure of comfort. So the idea that your behavior is catchy and mood is catchy, I like the idea that we get the culture that we deserve. And that's all of us. We all actively contribute to it, even if some people ostensibly lead it and have more power and have a bigger impact on it. Everybody contributes. And I think that a key part of any culture is actually managing the levels of positivity in any team. One of the things that I really like to focus on is actually, I found this term through the NHS, the health system in the UK, when they were talking about doctors and surgeons and how removed they were from their patients, and the fact that patient results were just significantly different when they had a surgeon or a doctor who was emotionally engaged and could show empathy. So there was a big movement to teach, and I still get asked to do this with hospitals here, to teach medical practitioners empathy and the human stuff. And one of the skills that came out that I think, if you do nothing else, that this is the one to focus on, is to listen with fascination. I mean, there are hundreds of listening experts and ideas about two-way listening and active listening and all the different things, but to strip it back to one simple idea to focus on every day and to have your team to focus on every day, it comes down to that demeanor of listening with fascination to the person that you're with, not waiting to answer, hanging on their every word. I think part of this loneliness epidemic that we're in is that we are longing to be seen and heard. And the more remote we are, the more disconnected we feel from that. So even in this environment on Zoom or in this kind of thing, we can deeply connect with people. It's harder, but you can do it. And to me, it hangs on the idea that we are listening to each other with fascination, to understand the meaning behind the words, to understand what's going on in people's physiology, and to read that as much as we can over screen. One thing I'd say to you on that is fascination sounds more interesting than curiosity. Agree, Wayne. Is just a little hack for remote or hybrid connection when you're having to do a lot of this, is try to make sure that people can see up to almost your waist. So that one, you're not doing what I said before, which is kind of Godzilla-ing, where people are kind of coming at you on the screen and freaking you out. But you're actually able to read people's bodies so that you can see their gestures and they're not weirdly warped. And you can actually get a real read of what's going on for them. It's not perfect the way that it is in face-to-face, but it's a little bit more effective than just a face on a screen. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, and happy to take any questions or, deepening on anything, is the idea that we want to train our brain. Listening with fascination is kind of the one key concept, but this is about small incremental habits. I don't know if you've read James Clear's Atomic Habits, but that's a great go-to book, as is BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits, about how to change habits for success and to become the human that you want to become. So some of the things that are recommended in the positive psychology research that we know make a difference and that are shown to retrain your brain to scan the world for positive in as little as 2 minutes a day for 21 days are things that I originally, when I saw them, thought, are they just a little bit fluffy? Is that really going to make a difference? And then I started doing the research and found that absolutely they do. So the first one that I thought really was about gratitude. So the idea behind the 3 gratitudes is that people write down every day 3 things that they feel grateful for. I sometimes, when I work with teams who are a little cringy around gratitude, just talk about positives. So every day as part of my process, I've got a hard copy journal that I use that works for me, and it prompts me to write down 3 things that are positive from the day before. So the idea of that is you're starting your day thinking about what's going well at work. What did I achieve? What did I enjoy yesterday? And then you're closing the day out with the same. Even once a day is enough, but if you can do it morning and night, first thing when you hit your desk, last thing as you shut the laptop down at the end of the day, it bookends your day with positive so that your brain starts to think, oh, I'm going to work. Something good's going to happen because good things are happening at work, and I can see the incremental steps of my achievement, which is a key part of fulfillment. Journaling is another one that's super effective, particularly if you're journaling about a positive experience you've had in the last 24 hours. What happens is not only do you capture it and sit with that positive experience, but you also give your brain a chance to relive it. So you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal on it when you journal. Exercise is a no-brainer. And I think, so many of my clients found a brilliant exercise pattern that worked for them last year. And I had so many people telling me about that, positive reinforcing effect of, I get out in the middle of the day and I exercise, or I make sure I prioritize it now because otherwise I'm in front of the screen all day. And as soon as we go back into that hybrid work environment, we've got our commute again. All I'm hearing from people is, I've dropped my exercise. I just can't fit it in anymore. So exercise teaches our brain that we can make change through incremental steps. We don't go to the gym once and work really hard and suddenly lose 10 kilos and look buff, as much as that would be awesome. We've got to incrementally build up, you know, a regular pattern, a regular habit to see the results. And that's the same with any habit. Meditation, so much is now written about meditation. I'm very happy to admit, I have been trying to have a regular meditation practice since I was 14 years old, when I was first taught transcendental meditation. So that is like 30 plus years of practicing and not really getting there. So I find different ways to meditate. If I'm particularly stressed or overwhelmed, I use a guided meditation. It kind of does the hard work for me rather than having to sit with silence, which doesn't always work for me. I also veer towards mindfulness. So doing something repetitive and immersive, swimming, laps, running for me is a big one, but even something like washing the dishes or gardening helps you immerse in what you're doing and switches some of the noise off and just lets you focus for a period of time. And the last one is random acts of kindness. Again, people get a little squishy around this one at work. To me, if I was going to translate random acts of kindness to you, it would be called thanking people, one of the greatest underused tools in every business environment. And it is as simple as the first email you send every day is an acknowledgement or a thank you of something that somebody has done or the way that they are showing up in your team or your organization. It doesn't actually even have to be in the organization. It can be in your social network for you to get the same brain impact as if you were doing it within the organization. So just a simple thank you or acknowledgement every morning as part of your habit and routine really starts to create a cyclical effect of positivity. You'll see it start to come back to you. Now we can send you these hacks, these ways to train your brain so that you've got them if you didn't capture them all. We're already connected on LinkedIn, but this has got the model drawn up a bit more prettily than my hand-drawn version, and the 5 tools. And also, this is the book that I contributed to over the COVID period, What the Hell Do We Do Now? It's actually a brilliant book. It's an enterprise guide to navigating the changes of COVID and beyond. So brilliant thought leader contributors from all around the world have contributed a chapter, and we can send you my chapter called Connect. I'm sure you're very surprised if you'd like that as well. So Julia, over to you. Where to from here?